Good morning. Well, sorry for the false start. I'm broadcasting from home this morning because I took a fall last week, and I thought that I was on the way to being amended. You have never had such a miserable Saturday night as I had because the thing spread instead of curing, and I was all over the place, in terms of. Well, let's see if we can move this camera to. I can get rid of those. Anne Blackburn says she hates those moving images behind her, and. See if we can lighten up the load. It always seems just a bit dark in here, and I don't understand why, because I've got plenty of light on. But still, we have to put up with those things. And it is a Monday morning, and here we go again. And we, first of all, let's just take, because when we review the newspapers, of course, the newspapers go to bed at about 1 o'clock in the morning. So we're really looking at the latest news from yesterday. Let's take a look quickly at what's happening this morning. And Xi Jinping faces the stiffest challenge to the rule of the Communist Party, Chinese Communist Party, that he ever has to date, and that China has in the most recent future. Because people are getting very upset at the government's diktat on COVID, which is absolutely zero tolerance. And on the weekend, so family burned to death because both firemen and any rescuers were afraid to go anywhere near the apartment to try and help save them. And the authoritarian diktat is under some stress because once protests in an authoritarian society start, they spread. And one never knows how a political party of that nature is going to react. It may well be that one of the things that they will try to do is to invade Taiwan to distract from problems at home. But it's always a worry on the international scene. A boy of 16 was arrested on suspicion of murder of two teenagers after a fatal stabbing. That was in East London, I believe. BBC says Chinese police assaulted and detained its reporter at Shanghai. They were covering the Shanghai protests, and the police picked out a BBC reporter and hustled them away to jail, and not being very gentle about it. A nurse was stabbed after an alarm failed in the middle of an attack by a patient. That's in the Echo. The Telegraph, the NHS employs more than 2,000 managers on six-figure salaries. And this issue of pay is going to become more and more a key. The unions are pressing for higher pay. The public are saying enough is enough. There are too many high-paid people, which is driving up the cost of living. And that is driving up our inability to meet what the union grandees and the big top management grandees and the government grandees can afford. And that they have all forgotten who they represent. So it's at the bottom, or at the left and the right, if you like, that we are all now saying, get a grip, show some leadership, not the usual stamping of feet. And we want for our members, comrades, or is for those people who work harder than the rest of us, MPs, and all those people in between who manage to screw up so many of the things that are supposed to be of service to us, is stop it. Your high salaries are not appreciated. Something has got to give. And you need to make concessions. And if you think that the good life is coming to an end, it is for the rest of us. So it is for you as well. Join the crowd. Join the general mob. Yeah. Yes. That'll be the day. anything else that is terribly important? Let's just see. There are 3 people who were arrested after the bodies of 2 babies were found at a house in South Wales. The military may be called in to drive ambulances and staff hospitals if the strikes take place. Sunak wants a vaccine task force style strategy to tackle NHS missions like cancer and obesity. And London Museums shuts racist and sexist medical history exhibition. The government launches a $1 billion scheme to insulate middle-income homes. That more or less is bringing stuff up to date. But let's now take a look at the newspaper headlines, because that gives us much better an idea of what's going on. By the way, just outside this morning, it's 11 degrees. The light showers expected, sunny spells, and a gentle breeze. A gentle breeze. So I don't have to worry about my hat, except I'm not venturing out except to go to hospital this afternoon. Wouldn't you know it, on a day when I'm feeling particularly sensitive in my rib cage, which I damaged on Thursday, flared up over the weekend, and on the general advice, I haven't gone into our studio this morning, but have decided to do this program from home. So it's not going to be the usual sophisticated stuff, pretty raw when I get hold of it. But I hope that what you'll do is you'll stay with me or dip in here and there throughout the morning, and you'll find something of interest. Right, first break of the morning, our Potter's Wheel, the park down in Southover. All right, here we are back again, and let's start to look at some of the newspapers. The Financial Times is the newspaper of choice this morning, and it goes abroad. China rocked by protests as anger spreads over zero COVID lockdowns. It actually can see the seriousness of this on the international stage, because the Financial Times does not like take its business headlines away for general news, international news uproar. But it has this morning, and it says there is growing discontent in China as protesters clash with police over the country's strict zero COVID policies. The FT reports that in the financial hub of Shanghai on Sunday, police struggled to disperse large crowds, which had gathered, and anti-government slogans were shouted during the second day of disorder. The Financial Times notes that the backlash poses one of the most explicit challenges to the ruling Chinese Communist Party authority in decades. Indeed, indeed, indeed. The Metro carries on with that theme. The Great Brawl of China, says its headline, and the unrest follows a protest in the northwestern city of Urumqi, where 10 people died in a tower block fire. Protesters have blamed lockdown rules for hampering rescue efforts. But authorities deny this. Of course, they would. The paper describes the police crackdown on dissidents, reporting that pepper spray and police batons have been used to quell gatherings. Well. The Daily Telegraph, Chinese protesters called for Xi to resign. Right, that's pretty daring stuff. That takes it further. And it also highlights the 2,000 NHS trust managers who are earning six-figure salaries. The Times, the army to rescue strike-hit NHS. We've actually covered that ahead, but it is another theme throughout the newspaper this morning. The Guardian, the price of Brexit is 4,000 fewer European doctors work in the NHS. The Guardian tends to lay everything at an anti-Brexit stance. So even if the shortage figures are true, one has to take it with a bowl of salt as to whether it's the fault of Brexit. I rather think it is the fault of NHS mismanagement, because the NHS has been badly mismanaged for years. But the government is a quango. That is a quasi-government organization, and that hates reform. Reform? Don't you tell us about reform, because we do not like the word. In fact, we think that it's a word that should be taken out of the dictionary. That's the attitude towards change that both governments and quangos and civil service and unions take. They don't want reform. They're onto a good jag, thank you very much. And why rock the boat? Why rock the boat? And nonsense, isn't it? It really is nonsense. But the Express says a radical new plan to boost the NHS and save lives is in the offing. It calls Rishi Sunak's radical new plan to boost the NHS and save lives. The Prime Minister has promised a life-saving shake-up of the health service, inspired by the COVID jabs task force. Well, let's hope that it's right. Let's hope that he has. Now, the more worrying thing is because what we've done is we have always said that the tail is wagging the dog, and the tail, according to the eye, appears ready to try and wag the dog again. Sunak losing control as the Tory rebellions grow. The paper reports that the Prime Minister is facing mounting pressure on multiple fronts. He's due to make decisions on issues such as energy, housing, policy and transport, and the paper says that it is understood that Mr. Sunak is considering U-turning on his promise to ban onshore wind farms. Former Chancellor George Osborne, another troublemaker, has warned that the government is not in control of events. Well, old George has decided to resurface. He's the man who unashamedly took the editorship of the Evening Standard, even though he was a fierce critic as a member of the cabinet, but also as an anti-government figure. He didn't mind becoming the editor of the Standard, whereas somebody with ethics such as our own Stephen Catlin stopped broadcasting for Mirador because he was mayor, and he was deemed a conflict of interest. Yes. The Mirror coughs up with the latest on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, with Matt Hancock coming in third. The celebrity who came in first, as I've never heard of. So there you are. That's what that program is all about. which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Nobody hears about them until they actually go on this program, and then that makes them a celebrity. So you can say, "I'm a celebrity. Get me out of here." Wonderful stuff. Wonderful stuff. The Sun. It goes the same way. Exclusive Hancock cashes in. I'm a celeb. Now get me out of politics, it says. And it calls for Hancock to leave politics altogether. The Daily Mail now, as usual, has a fury over Starmer class war on private schools. What it says is that people are very angry that part of the Labour format would actually tax heavily private schools. And it says it's how silly, because then what you're going to do is up the cost of the public schools because the state will have to bear all the costs of every educational establishment. It's already creaking. So they have a point. They have a point. Daily Star, brace yourself for the beast from the east. It says that it's time to wrap up, as the beast from the east, as it says, it comes and blasts in from Russia, and that we can get. And we're going to get a really cold spell, which isn't going to help, is it? With all the nonsense about energy that's going on. Now, over the weekend, no. What we'll do is we will take a look at the local news, and these are the highlights from yesterday. That the first Sussex Christmas Day forecast is issued, which includes chances of snow, possibly a white Christmas. But more to the point is several supermarkets have issued not to eat warning. Food recalls amid safety fears concerned. Let's see what Aldi and Lidl recall ice lollies and cheese with a do not eat warning. They have safety concerns. Gianni's milk chocolate lollies and simply grated cheddar, it says. The product may contain small pieces of plastic, so if you've got it, be very careful. Okay, let's. There was a pile-up, including 2 steam engines, 3-vehicle crash near the A22. It said last night, November the 26th, or the 28th today. I know that because it's my birthday. November the 6th. The crash took place on Broom Lane by the A22, shortly before 7 p.m., and that would have been Saturday night. 3 vehicles were involved in the crash. One of the vehicles was a steam engine, while the other 2 were cars. What else have we got locally? Let's have a look. A boy, 12, was killed by a car in Sussex. And there are flood alerts out for this area. It was issued on Friday. and they say that flooding can be expected, particularly if there is heavy rain. Now, the forecast today is for very, very light rain. So whether that warning will be curbed a little, I have no idea. But it's so that the rest of the local news tends to be a little bit parochial. We're not going to worry about it. Let's go. Well done, the energy companies. They're full of bright ideas to help their customers. Now they've made power so expensive that for an average house such as this, you can't afford to heat it. So you don't need appliances such as this. But that means you also don't need a fridge, because you can keep your groceries cool and fresh without it. The house is cold enough. Well done, chaps. Right, now, one of the stories over the weekend was that rugby footballer legend Doddy Weir, who played for Scotland in a very distinguished way, who had motor neuron disease and was an ambassador as he slowly deteriorated and died, did die on the weekend. And the plaudits and honour to him coming in are enormous. And it just does actually highlight for us the NHS. It is far from me to place myself in a situation similar to Doddy Weir. There's no way that I could ever consider myself to be even in the shadow of the man. But I have Parkinson's, and I've had it for 6 or 7 years now. And it is similar to motor neuron, except that, as far as I'm aware, it does not kill you. You can die of Parkinson's on the basis that you catch something else. And the combination, because Parkinson's weakens your defenses, is it can be attributable in that way. And so I'm a bit careful about what I do. And I fell down the stairs the steps leading from the bus stop outside where I live into my apartment. And I lay there for 10 minutes and nobody came by before I managed to haul myself up and get myself in. Then I actually started to feel okay, as one does immediately after these things. And the harm seemed to be limited. Wow, wham, bam. I was going to watch rugby with my friends on Saturday evening, and I could not move. I could absolutely not move. The effects of the fall had slowly hammered at me, and I was stuck. I couldn't even get from the bed to the settee and back again. That's how bad it was. Sunday, it began to ease a little, but not before I had warnings from several friends, one with medical connections, to not do anything much today. Unfortunately, I do have to go to hospital this afternoon, and I will fulfill that. But break an egg, and Mirador Television is coming to you from Clevedown this morning, not the White Hart. Let me just tell you that one of the things that when you when you are ill, the way that I'm ill, you can become hypersensitive to things. Now, I take a pretty positive attitude towards Parkinson's. I tell it to bugger off, plainly, and just try to get on with what I do. But the body can only take so much. And one of the things that I have to say is when I go into the White Hart Hotel at 7 o'clock each morning, that's my normal routine. I'm just missing it this morning. I am greeted by three of the most beautiful ladies with the warmest reception that any man can do going into his office. Jane, Shannon, and Sally at the White Hart are incredible. And they shine out as samples of what we should be, as opposed to what we're becoming. Because I can go into other places and I get a humph and a sort of a good morning, but can you move where you're standing type of approach. So I am a lucky, lucky man. But that White Hart Hotel stands as a beacon to me. Oh, it's got its critics. Yes, it's got its critics. But it's a beacon to me of civility and courtesy and decency. It is a lovely, lovely hotel with a lovely, lovely staff. It's small, but it's ancient, it's traditional, and we are having a concert there, or a drinks party, if you like, on December the 22nd. And we've invited about 40 or 50 of the so-called great and the good, and those people who should, as part of duty, be supporting something like this, because we haven't done it for ourselves. Yes, we want to televise it, but we've done it to try and support the high street, which needs all the support it can get. So all the people you would think whose duty it would be to support the high street is most have said, no, I'm terribly sorry, I can't come. Well, that's okay, because actually some private citizens who we've also invited have said that they will come, and they have a sense of duty. Why the hell do we have elected bodies? Why the hell do we have councils? Why the hell do we have systems such as fire, ambulance, hospitals, if they will not make any effort to try to help on a community basis and boost community feeling and show that they have a sense of duty? It's because they don't have a sense of duty. Everything is I. That's why we've got a nurses' strike. That's why train drivers are striking. It's I. There is no sense of duty left. I'm disappointed that some of those people that we invited to our Christmas party aren't coming. But I also didn't really expect many of them to say yes, because they are so busy getting it on themselves, getting them on to the point where my inner information people, and we have, as journalists, we have inner information people in all the councils, tell me that there are 2 Christmas parties taking place for Lewes Town Council. 2 Christmas parties. And who's paying for it? We are. We, the taxpayer. Now, I don't have any details, so I'm going to be a little careful about what I say. But if this is true, and I think that it is incumbent upon the local council to either explain this action or deny that it's going to take place. Because those parties, which will be for 40 or 50 people, cost an arm and a leg. And they don't exactly keep themselves short of the good things. So Christmas is being seen in very different ways. Very different ways. by different groups. And we at Mirador have a view. We believe that Christmas is a time for us to show a duty. Not only a duty of care through sandbanks, food banks, bit of banks, and saying nice things about giving a little bit of extra, or sending £3 to one of the various groups that appeal on television. Duty has got to seep throughout the community. And until it does, once again, we will not see community events. Because I'm a soppy old sentimentalist, I watch various movies about Christmas on the TV, which come up at Christmas time, especially made movies. And they all have the same theme, that in small town America, the central festival at Christmas takes place, and that the entire town gets involved in it. Is that true? I don't know. But these movies have been made in the last couple of years and are reflecting what happens in small town America. Have Americans got their sense of duty? Do they have what we have lost? Do they care about their communities to the point where they are willing to follow the diktat of their former president, John F. Kennedy, when he said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country"? I keep on thumping this theme. I keep on quoting him. And the more I see the activities and the actions of our senior people, our leaders, so-called, whether it be industry or whether it be local government or national government, is they have all lost that sense. It's all me, 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 me. And it's got to stop. We need people at the top who look at the country as a whole and want the country to react or reflect the fact that we are a caring community, which we keep on saying that we are. We are a caring community. There's our town hall behind the War Memorial in the center of our small town. And it's about time that we heard a peep from them. What are their policies to look after the town? What are they doing this Christmas? In the two previous mayors, Stephen Catlin and John Lamb, both have had initiatives at Christmas that have shown where the town and the council have taken the forefront. I have not seen Max Beach, God bless you. He says, "So sorry to hear about your diagnosis, Keith. You're a preach to it. It's a shining example to us all. Wishing you all the very best with it." How very, very sweet of you, Max, to say that. The fact of the matter is I don't see myself as a hero. Although the funny thing is, you can't help but make a comparison to Doddy Weir, who was given all the accolades that he deserved, and he could have had more. But in my lifetime, I done my little bit. I founded a rugby club in 1967 in Vancouver, in British Columbia, which is going to this day and is terribly strong. I set up Russia Today television from scratch. I instituted the first training program for TV at the Reuters Foundation. I started Radio K-Burn way back here in 1997. And I've got Mirador going against all the efforts to stop it, all the efforts not to support it, all the efforts to ignore it. I've got it going. So perhaps I have shown a little bit of grit, and perhaps I have shown that I can actually make a contribution to my community, even though I am weighed down by the Parkinson issue, and that he does once in a while force me indoors the way it has today. But I would love to see a little bit more from our so-called leaders, a bit more. A bit more to make Christmas a jolly time, a good time, and to see some vitality in our city, in our town centre. No, even the most modest of initiatives, such as ours, with a choir, glasses of wine and nibbles, close to Christmas, goes ignored, unheralded. You should be bloody ashamed of yourselves, all of you. We didn't do this for ourselves. In fact, we are very, very thin on the ground with our coffers. But we decided that we would put money into this to show our support for the high street. Does the high street show any support for itself? No. Did the town council show any support for it? Well, not by coming to us. How wonderful then that there are private citizens who still have that wonderful, wonderful thing, which seems to be missing so much from our society at the moment, a sense of duty. Get off your bloody fat asses and turn up on the evening of the 22nd. Not because we're making any money out of you, not because we're making any money out of anybody, but we just felt it was our duty to try hard to boost Christmas in Lewes. And do you help the boosters? No, you don't. And if it is to be believed, you are going to have your own party paid for by us, in which you can kick up your heels and think that you had a good time. Shame on you. Shame on you as leaders of our community. And that's why I believe it is time for reform. We need to be reformed because you are not doing your job. None of you, not on any level. The executive is as bad as the elected council. It's time that you are forced off your fat asses if you won't actually get up yourselves, if you won't start to do things. Now, what we do is we get strutting politicians going across what they see to be the stage. I am told that the only thing that the Liberal Democrats in this part of the world are doing at the moment is trying to get their man elected. He's got such a high profile, I keep forgetting his name. He's the present council leader. That's all. The town that they're elected to look after, the district they're elected to look after, no. We'll say that we're doing a few things, but we're not. What we're going to do is get our man elected. Because if we've got our man elected, then some of the goodies that are handed out by Westminster will fall our way. How sad, how crazy, how awful that we are in this particular situation. Well, I've had my rant. But you know, it is time for a lot of other reforms too. And it's our leaders that should be pushing them through. It's our leaders who should be taking the initiative and making sure that some of the things that are undermining our community are redressed. The banks where people met to talk are being eroded, are withdrawn. That should be made illegal. If you want to be a banker, which is a key element of society, then you've got to actually face the responsibilities of being bankers. You've got to keep your banks open. You've got to look after the villages. And what is the thing that really annoys me more than anything, is the way that the banks and the credit card companies and some individual operators send out bullying letters if you miss your payment by as much as a day. Out comes the bullying letter. And nobody does anything about it. Why? Because here's another theme of mine. Is the computer. We have sold our soul to computers, and the computers are now badly letting us down. And this is another revolution that we need, because if the bosses won't act and the government won't act, then it's time that, like the Chinese, we got terribly upset and said, enough is enough. Mankind does not run its own institutions. The computers do. The computers are supposed to help us, not take over from us. And it's these lazy people who have their subsidized bars and their paid for Christmas parties, and that's how they see what they do. They have no responsibility whatsoever. They don't even look at the things that are upsetting our community. My guess is that any politician watching this, and I doubt if there are many, any politician would not know what I was talking about. They wouldn't have a clue what I was talking about, because they are not at the receiving end of some of these things. It's got to stop. It's got to change. We must have as much reform as we possibly can get of our institutions, of our work practices, and mostly of taking back from the computer our own destiny. It is weird, unacceptable, an unhappy situation where we're actually allowed, or do allow, machines, because that's all a computer is, a machine, to run our society. And that's what we're doing. About time, I think, that I just went down to let's see. I think, well, first of all, we'll take a little visit to the Potter's Wheel at Grange Park. Now, I was wandering through the precinct on Saturday when I did venture out very briefly. And of course, who was there in the middle, as he is almost every Saturday, is my good friend Mick Symes, who, despite the fact he gets a lot of criticism, is a tireless worker for this community. He works his cotton socks off. And as usual, he was busy raising money for cancer in the precinct on last Saturday morning. And we stopped and had a very, very brief chat. And he told me that Susan Harris, who does lots of charity work, and who was diagnosed with cancer some time ago, has now got so poorly that she is in hospital, I think in Bexhill. But Susan used to do photography early in the morning, and she used to wake up very early and take a few photographs. And I managed to dig this one out of some of her past stuff. So this is a tribute to Susan Harris, a lady who does understand and did understand, and let's hope she can be nursed back to health to continue to understand her her charity work and use her sense of duty the way that she always has. This is just a brief sample of what she would do early in the morning. So photos by Susan Harris, who is lying desperately ill in a hospital bed. She did a tremendous amount for Action Cancer, a tremendous amount. The Action Cancer has a very high visible presence in Lewes. It has a shop in the corner of the High Street and whatever the road is that runs across the bottom. I've just forgotten it at the moment. But right down by the Waitrose store and the precinct, I may say. So that is Susan and her work. Now, what we're going to do over the next the run up to Christmas is we're going to show on a daily basis the episodes. There are 8 episodes, 16 half episodes. So here is a acclaimed documentary, The Bloody Past of a Tiny Town.
I'm Keith Hayes, and you'll be sick and tired of my face by the time this series ends, but I hope you'll bear with me as I shuffle through the streets of this lovely town, pop in and out of its pubs, and tell you a story of its bloody past. In Saxon times, it was known as Lewes. The modern term for toilet might have come from it, I suppose. But the town became respectable and is now known as Lewes. Lewis, not Lewes. But its original name does come from Saxon times. And this pretty little town in East Sussex, nicely tucked under the shelter of the South Downs, has had this high street for longer than written records go back. Pretty normal sort of UK high street, really. Typical shops and stores each side of it. Looks just like High Street UK. High Street UK, from John O'Groats to Land's End, have all got a history. But this little stretch of road has a violent and bloody history, and that history reflects much of the history of the country itself. A pint pulled from a tap is the tipple of most Englishmen, I suspect. They sure tippled in Lewes in the past. This pub goes back to 1742. There's a list of the landlords to prove it. Today, sitting on the high street, it's one of the 16 pubs in a town of 16,000. 150 years ago, there were 63 pubs in Lewes and 18 breweries. And in those days, there were only 9,000 people.
Wow, what a tall tale. Yes, but true. And over the next few programmes,
I'm going to take a closer look at some of the bloodier and more sensational events that have occurred on this seemingly normal high street. But right now, I'm just going to paint a general picture of this tiny English town, before I get to the bloody and the exotic. The high street is dominated by a Norman castle, one of the oldest Norman castles in the country. It was built not long after the invasion of 1066. It housed the Norman garrison, who ensured the people living inside its walls were kept safe. Indeed, Lewes was a walled town, and there is brick-by-brick evidence of the 4 gates that gave entry to the town.
By the way, Lewes isn't a corruption of Lou. It's the Saxon word for a hill. And if you thought that Lewes had lots of pubs, it has far more hilly roads. Far more even than the rest of the country, I think.
The modern-day Lewes is well used by its people. Lots of shops, markets, and even tea rooms. It also has a lot of parades. At the end of the school year, a ceremony takes place called patina. All year long, pupils design and build exotic costumes ready to parade down the high street.
Raphael, I walked onto the high street in Lewes a couple of years ago to be greeted with a lot of children running around in funny costumes. What on earth is that all about?
It's called Moving on Parade, and it's something we started 16 years ago. It started from a wish of parents to bring more art into schools because they see how much schools struggle demands of the government, and they wanted to support the school in that. So we started something called patina, which is parents and teachers in the arts.
All right.
Moving on Parade celebrates the transition for primary to secondary education of all the children in Lewes District Council.
Very colourful costumes. How do you decide what the costumes are? You're the artistic director, so you better give me a good answer on this.
So every year we have a theme, and the theme this year is Wonders of Our World. Last year we asked the community to suggest different artists that they would like to see on the parade, and loads of suggestions came in, and we shortlisted the huge list into 16 schools, which was the amount of schools that took part last year. We had Frida Kahlo, and we had Picasso, and we had Van Gogh, and we have Giacometti, and we had Andy Warhol. So they doing illustrations and designs, and then the patina artists take all the children's idea and adapt it into a practical design that the children are actually able to make in a couple of days. We invite about 8 or 10 people from every school to come and learn the skills of the carnival costume, and they start to make the big make that the school going to carry. And after that, the patina artists going into the school and work with the children on their individual costumes. We're trying to really do it as an enjoyment, getting people together. They're all gonna meet in their secondary school later on. We're trying that they'll meet each other beforehand as well. So we're doing events all year round for the benefit of the whole community, not just for the year sixes.
You do other things. You said you go to the schools. What do you do in the schools?
So our next event is on the 22nd of April. It's called Dance Your Socks Off. And because the theme this year is Wonders of Our World, we thought it'll be really fun to have an evening of teaching flamenco, bhangra, and the sirtaki with world food. We're going to have sushi, we're going to have international cocktails, we're going to have professional dance callers who are going to teach the dance, and it's going to be a really fun event, and that's for children as well.
See, cocktails, I told you Lewis is a drinking town.
Yeah, we're pretty good at cocktails. Growing every year, so we making contact with our twin towns. We're making contact with Louis in America. There's a group of them, artists from Louis in America, coming to Louis in June. We made contact with them, and what we would really like is to use this format in other places, because Louis is the only place that we know of who celebrates their moving on from primary to secondary schools, and it's people that hear about it, they are impressed, and it will be really nice for other people, other children in other communities to do the same.
Yeah, I didn't realise it was unique to Lewis and a very unusual operation. Well, how do the children react to it? I mean, generally speaking, do you get great support from the kids?
Yes, we do, and because it's been going for so many years, it becomes a part of the cultural calendar of the town. So young children know that when they get to year 6, they'll do the moving on parade, and all the siblings did it, and they've seen the rest of the older ones doing it. So it's kind of something that they look forward to.
I'm known for wearing strange costumes. As you can see, my hats are still there in this episode, so I don't think I should be marching, but I most certainly will come to the cocktails.
Great.
Raffaella, thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
The adults have their turn, and on November the 5th, the biggest Guy Fawkes celebration anywhere in the world takes place. Exotic costumes, burning crosses, effigies stuffed with fireworks. Rousers, that is a banger to you and I, are tossed casually into the street. And almost every citizen of the town, old and young, takes part. There's a bit more to the bonfire celebration, though, than just the gunpowder plot. In 1553, Queen Mary was determined to bring Roman Catholicism back to England. Right here on the High Street, she burned 17 people at the stake who wouldn't convert. The dungeon, where they were held before being so horribly slaughtered, is still here, up these steps, being the last walk the condemned men would take. It was a horrible death. They were put into tar barrels, which were then set alight. Pretty bloody stuff. But we'll leave the High Street for a few minutes. Then we'll bring you more gore, blood and guts.
I think the government stinks. And I think the...
That is part one episode 1 of documentary about Lewis, the bloody past of a tiny town. We'll play we play episode 1, part 2 tomorrow, and so on throughout the next couple of weeks as we lead up to Christmas. Those people who are interested in Lewis and his background will find it interesting. Perhaps those people who are new to Lewis will find it intriguing. And those people who are experts on Lewis might find it a bit inaccurate here and there, but by all means, batter me around the ears. I didn't get too many complaints the first time around. Okay, where are we at the moment? Well, we are at 9:38 on the 28th day of November 2022. 2022, a year that will live in our memory as a year that there wasn't a month went by without a crisis of some sort. And it's amazing that we've actually reached where we have today. It's just a very quick look back at the newspapers this morning. The Financial Times led with China rocked by protests as anger spreads over zero COVID lockdowns. The Metro carries on with that, the great brawl of China, it calls it, and it talks about dissidents and the blame that is taking place and the challenge to the Chinese government. The Telegraph carries on. The Chinese protesters call for Xi to resign. That's the strongest headline of the lot. The protests are one thing, but to call for the president of the country to resign in China just shows how widespread the dissatisfaction and dissent has become. The Times, the army to rescue the strike-hit NHS. A story about the fact that the troops will be brought in to drive ambulances and so on if the nurses go on strike. The Guardian, the price of Brexit, 4,000 fewer European doctors work in the NHS. The paper says all sorts of specialists aren't available because of Brexit. All sorts of specialists may not be available, but it's not all because of Brexit. And that is a biased view that comes from the Guardian. The Daily Express is a radical new plan to boost the NHS and save lives. And it says that Sunak has got a grip on the catastrophe that the NHS is becoming and starting to work to try and get the thing put right. Sunak is losing control as Tory rebellions grow, however. That's from the Eye. And our theme this morning was, it is please, no, we didn't say please. What we're saying is to backbench MPs, to local councils, to anybody in the civil service, is get a grip and get your sense of duty back. That's what we're looking for, a sense of duty in our leadership, a sense that things are being done for the good of the community and not for because it's a good jag, because it's a good job to have, because you're not going to suffer the way that the rest of us will suffer from shortages and so on. But the emphasis keeps on returning to the back end of the dog, trying to wag the government tail. And it's doing it. And it has done for the past decade almost, and not to the benefit of the country. It's time to stop. It is time to stop. get a grip, and let's have some sense of duty and responsibility back in the fold. Locally, one thing that we just have to keep an eye on this morning, this morning's weather forecast is quite good, actually. I think that it's, let's see, 11 degrees, bad for the time of the year. Some light showers, glimpses of the sun, and only a mild breeze for the weather. However, on Friday, flood warnings and fierce storms and lots of rain were issued once again. And we mustn't take our eye off that particular ball. Not a bit of it. We were promised the last time that Lewis is flooded that there would be defences so that it would never happen again. Well, I'm not sure that it will never happen again. Some advances have been made in flood detection and flood protection and flood prevention. And we perhaps have to prevent it happening again. Now, once again, that's controversial. Some say it is. Some say it hasn't done enough. But anyway, that warning is out. One of the things about Parkinson's, by the way, is you get a very dry mouth. And little things congregate here when you try to eat or drink. So it makes you look a bit sloppy, which is, I try to attend to it as often as I can. But the reason that I'm talking about Parkinson's is because for a related condition, if you like, a motor neuron disease, the footballing great, the rugby great, Doddy Weir, passed away at the weekend. And why would Doddy Weir be any different to the hundreds and hundreds of top rugby players that we have? Because he fought to the very end. He fought it to the very end. He campaigned to get reform in the NHS and in treatment. He campaigned to get financial support. And through it all, even as his body deteriorated, so he smiled and he laughed and he joked and he kept more people feeling good about him than they did about themselves. And that's duty. That is duty. And Doddy Weir was a great. I'm not a great. I have got Parkinson's. And I do my best in a very small way to try and help those who also suffer. I have a number of friends and associates and colleagues who have Parkinson's. And it worries the hell out of them, as indeed it worries the hell out of me. But the fact is, if you let Parkinson's take control, it will control you. What you have to do is to defy it at every turn and tell it is not going to get you, and to support any initiatives that are made to try and develop Parkinson's in your body. It has its manifestations. Some people can't keep still like this. Others, such as myself, have difficulty walking. We shuffle. Okay, I'll let you into a secret. Today is my birthday, as I actually mentioned earlier in the program, so it's no secret, I suppose. And it is... I'm 83. And I'm still fighting Parkinson's, and I'm still trying to do my best for my community. Now, I'm a very controversial character. Not everybody likes me. Well, not many like me. But I do things as I see my duty. And I am fed up of seeing around me those who ponce around, who strut, and put themselves into public view and do nothing, and particularly have lost their sense of duty. It's not on. It is not on. We expect you. We expect you to do your very best for your community. And if my source of information is correct, 2 Christmas parties for town councillors at the taxpayers' expense at this time of the country's difficulties seems to me not to be any sense of duty. And so if we call for reform or a call for your removal, that's why. That's why. Because we believe that you've lost your sense of duty. You just want these things for yourself. Look what they've got in Westminster. Subsidised bars. Subsidised bars. And subsidised restaurants. But, looking at some of these things is, one of the things in the House of Commons is, yes, they are subsidised, but they still manage a civilised way of living. And one of the things that bothers me is that it is, for instance, on train travel, it is all very clinical. You get on the train and you sit down and you amuse yourself until you get to your destination. And I can remember the days when we got a very, very, just on ordinary seats, to long distance travel, is you had a bar where you could go and get a drink. You could go into the restaurant and you got a fully cooked meal, an excellent meal. All these things were a civilized way of travel. You may not want to eat or drink on a train, but now there is no civility in travel. And then we wonder why violence goes up. There is no etiquette on train travel anymore. And then we wonder why people fall out. All that is done is a system that can jam as many people to get them from point A to point B. It would be very interesting to have alternate services. For instance, the 20 past the hour out of Lewis is a straightforward get on, get off of Victoria in an hour and 10 minutes. But the 10-2 is get on, you can sit down, you can have a cocktail, a gin and tonic, perhaps not time to have a full meal. Although in the old days of the Brighton Bell, I'm reliably informed that there was an old colonel who would have a brandy with baked beans every morning as he went from Brighton to London. He managed that in an hour and 10 minutes. Bringing back some sort of civility so that at least we can see that life can be civil, instead of being hammered by computers, hammered by trying to get the best deal for the buck. And where does that come from? That comes from shareholders. Yes, we want the money, to hell with the rest. And you can see it in plane travel now. The meals are pretty awful compared to even what they were 20 years ago. Yes, it makes these companies more money, but it doesn't actually give the punter, the person who travels, any sense that they are a civilized company, that the world is civilized, that you can treat eating as an art form, that you can sit at a table with a knife and a fork and enjoy absolutely everything. Doesn't happen. Even on the ferries, it's self-catering. And between New Haven and Dieppe, there's 4 hours. 4 hours in which at one time there was a restaurant. The last time I went over, there wasn't. It was just stuff from the self-catering service. But there's 4 hours in which to enjoy a really leisurely meal, to taste some fine French foods. Why not? Guess where you're coming to, chaps? No. Ram it down their throats. And it all looks, when it's served in those self-service places, like stodge. We've lost our way. We simply do things now to facilitate either cutting down time, not cutting down money, because the more that you find these things change, the more it costs. But to have a good feeling about getting on board a train or a plane or a boat, just a civilized feeling, and that may do a lot towards bringing our community up to snuff. It's 9:54, by the way, on the 28th of November, a signal day for me. I made it. I made it to another birthday. Will I make it to another Christmas? Who knows? I am at the hospital this afternoon, and perhaps I'll get a better idea of where I stand and whether I'm creaking at the seams, falling to pieces, or getting my act back together. Why not? Why not? I like a little chat to the nurses and the consultants. They're polite, half-decent people. And it is also a day where you can enjoy as almost a spring day in the autumn. Well, it's not, it's winter now, isn't it? But it's 11 degrees out there with light showers expected, some sunny periods, and a moderate breeze, a gentle breeze today, a gentle breeze, which means that my hat might just stay on my head. Might. Let's see where we are. Let's have a look to see if there's anything that we can know. It's isn't that funny? Things disappear out of things. Oh, there we go. We've got a few more now to take a look at. Now, what are we on about this morning? We're having a go. Just let me tell you, and I'm really having a go at our establishment people who can't even bother to get off their bums to come and give a bit of support to something meant to help the high street. How lazy lot. And they've lost their way. They're focused on all the wrong things. For God's sake, get a sense of feeling of duty, a sense that you should actually make a contribution. Right. We we just went into something there which it didn't want to. No, it didn't like. So we'll take another look, and we'll. But let me tell you what we're doing on the 22nd of. Oh dear. We seem to have once again hit one of those things where nothing is appearing when it should. Never mind. We have the paddock choir singing carols in the front bar, or what used to be known as the farmer's bar. That is the lovely lounge with the blazing fire, already ablaze with the Christmas tree and with lights. And we are inviting various people to come and have a free drink. And we've invited those people from our leadership, most of whom have said, oh no, we're too busy. Too busy to support the high street, and then you'll go on wailing and you'll campaign. Oh, we've got to save the high street. Bullshit. You really don't mean a word that you say, and you are not worthy. I would like to see a whole new, different set of people standing for Parliament. The incumbent don't really rate very much. The challenger don't really rate very much. And the also-rans don't stand a bloody chance. So it's time, I think, for us to take a totally different look. The nice thing is that individuals with no axe to grind, who have a sense of duty, who have a feel for supporting their town, have decided that they will come. So our gathering will be small, but it will be important. And those people who think they're important, the self-important people in our community, can just wait at the front desk. You will not be invited again. And not only that, we shall watch, particularly since you seem to be spending money on Christmas parties for yourselves. And we've got problems with even food banks. No wonder we've lost respect. No wonder there is no feeling of community left. You've helped destroy it, and now you're on a path to keep on destroying it. Oh, you'll trot out. We did this, we did that, with other. You haven't. You've done sweet bugger all for this town. It's beginning to die. And I haven't heard one solitary, single suggestion to keep it alive. Not one. And don't start talking about affordable housing, because actually there is no policy on affordable housing. It's not there on anything that is new, on any new development. And it's very, very disappointing. Very disappointing. I think you start to take stock. Why are many of you there, particularly at the town level, is because he's a nice man. He's my neighbour. Oh, I felt that I needed to vote for a nice man. Well, we're at fault then. It's the voter who's at fault. But personally, I would campaign to kick you all out at the next election. All of you. The trouble is that I doubt if decent citizens want to stand. And so you would sweep back in again, no matter what we say, whatever influence we may have. Sad. Very sad. Very, very, very sad. Okay, it's 10 o'clock. In fact, it's 10:01. Let's go down. Let's go down to the park and just retrieve our sanity, shall we? Yes, we'll the potter's wheel, our potter's wheel. Well, here I am again, and just a reminder that it is 10:03 on the 28th day of November 2022, and I'm happy to say that we are experiencing a mild day out there. It's not a bad day at all, and it's my birthday. Woo! Ooh, happy birthday, Keith. Do you know, it's funny though, is that the social media seems to break down. Years ago, I would have got 20, 30, 40 wishes of birthday happiness. I've had one. I've had one, and that's all. And we have no. Just looking again on this day, Star Jobs. Is let's see if there's anything. Keith in Mox. Good. Suzanne Musho is coming along shortly, and yes, absolutely no birthday wishes at all. My daughter phoned me on the weekend, and I had a visit to give me a hand because I was a bit helpless from the lovely Janet Evans. Janet is would not consider herself to be anything special, but she is what I call my blue-ass fly. She is full of help. She has more little, not noticeably organized charities, but she looks after more people, more elderly people. She looks after more little bits and pieces. She tears around doing shopping for people, making sure they're all right. She brought me some paracetamol last night. She is a lovely, lovely lady, and I pay homage to her because if there are more like her, we would be a much happier community. But there we are. There we are. There we are. There we are. As you get older, people forget your birthday. And those people who are close to you, of course, many have dropped off the roost. I'm lucky to have reached 33. Cracked rib. And barely move. But nonetheless, I am able to keep going. And it is my contribution to our community is this television station. Not many people appreciate it. Doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is that there are a small group of us who do care as a sense of duty. Yeah, make no mistake. We'd love to make some money out of it. But we keep going even though we don't. Even though it costs us out of our own pockets. And those aren't necessarily deep pockets, believe me. So that is... Oh, I'm really having a go this morning. But let's have a little giggle, shall we? Because just not too long ago, well, I hope that we can have a giggle, because not too long ago, we had a little program that we made, and I'm just seeing if I can see it now, because I did see it earlier. Let's. I always lose a plot somehow. Let's go to some model trains. No, we won't. We'll go to Andy, the window cleaner, because this is somebody for whom I have huge respect, and he's still there day in, day out, looking after the shop fronts on the high street. One of my favourite things is sitting outside when it's sunshiny. Now that we can, in a pub, and talking to those people who get the day going, and who have I been meeting for years and years and years, is but Andy, a terrific character that everybody knows. Andy, how long have you been doing this?
Approximately 28 years.
28 years?
Yeah.
So you've seen some changes here?
Yeah, certainly, yes. Certainly, yeah.
What was it like 28 years ago?
So I can't honestly remember, Keith. I'm at that age now where the memories go. It was, certainly different and certainly busier.
Tell me, what's it like? Because you and I used to have a race to get to the high street first.
Oh, yes, yeah.
6 o'clock in the morning, yeah. We used to have a wager on it. But tell me, in those days it was empty, but times have changed. What is it like at 7 o'clock in the morning here?
7 o'clock now is more like it used to be at maybe 5:30, 6 o'clock. There's nobody about. I don't find anybody. Even up to 9 o'clock, the town's still quite quiet. And obviously, since the lockdown and the shops reopening, it's sort of 10 o'clock in the morning before the shops are opening. So it's a lot quieter than I've ever known it, really.
But you put in a fair old day. I mean, you're here early and you finish late.
Yeah, I do, Keith. I'm glad you brought that up. A lot of people think I don't, but I do. Yeah.
You clean windows for the businesses, and I must say, one hell of a job you do too. They all look sparkling. But as they drift in, who are the first people to get to their shops? And we always think of shops opening at 9, but there must be a lot of people who get there well ahead of you.
Yeah, certainly. You've got Sharon at Bedworth's and Lucy. They're there quite often, certainly by 8 o'clock in the mornings now, getting their shop ready for opening at 9. I see them if I'm working this top of town. Obviously, the girls going to work in Cafe Nero again. Yeah, again, Keith, it's not like it was. It's I'd really be racking my brains to say at 7 o'clock if I see anybody, really.
What did you do through lockdown?
I've done a lot of gardening, a lot of walking, lots of shopping, lots of housework. So I had one happy life. So,
right then.
And that's so that's still good too.
Is she glad to get you out through the front door?
No, my wife works longer hours than me, so she goes out the door with me at about 6 o'clock every morning now. And she won't get home till about 6 in the evening, so I'm generally home. So I do the shopping probably on the way home today.
Now, over the years, you must have peered in through a window and seen a few things and thought, oh my goodness me, I better move on. Anything that sticks out in your mind?
When not so much doing the shops, but certainly when I was younger and I used to do the house windows, I saw quite a few things where you had to pretend you hadn't seen, and when they answered the door, you said, "Oh, sorry," but it's quite embarrassing for them and me.
It's always nice to know that the window cleaner has got a zip on his mouth.
There's certainly some signs.
Not that I would do anything wrong. But,
no, exactly.
So, what does the future hold, Andy?
I don't know for me, Keith, really. I mean, I'm looking at it now, my work just gets less and less, but I love what I do and I love coming into the town. Even though I don't live in the town, I love to work here. But the work's getting less and less, so I maybe have to do it on a part-time basis and get another outlet somewhere else. So.
Well, people certainly enjoy you. I mean, you're a breath of fresh air first thing in the morning.
Thank you.
Do you find that everybody quips with you, or some people are a bit grumpy?
No, certainly not. No, I can't think of anybody who's off with me in the morning or whatever time of day. Most people are quite cheerful, and I think they like it that I'm cheerful, so it helps them. So I hope it does.
One thing that I always admire you for. I admire you for a lot of things, I may say, because I think that not a lot of people can do your job. But one of the things that I admired was some of the big boys moved in.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you saw them off.
No, unfortunately, I did at first, but unfortunately, like the restaurants, they've gone now, Prezzo. I used to clean Prezzo, Pizza Express and Ask, but they all went national company overnight on me, so I lost them, and they were all like 2.5 hour jobs, so I lost a day's work overnight with them. To be honest, yeah, I lost them probably about 5 years ago. And that was quite a dip in my income.
Yeah, I mean, you're such a favourite, so you stay with all the favourites, I think.
Oh, certainly, yeah. I mean, the independents and some of the national companies.
So big business, stay away, we don't want you. Andy, it's always a pleasure to see you.
Yeah, and you, Kev.
And we like to talk to people who start off early in the day and find out what it's like in Lewis, because as you say, at the moment it's quiet.
I'm sorry.
But who knows what the future holds.
Let's hope it turns out for the best for us all. If anybody commercial wants a window cleaner shops, restaurants, offices or pubs, I'm certainly there to help you.
Okay, and that's Andy, and you can get in touch with him through Mirador Television. We'll pass any messages where you want him along, because not only does he do an excellent job, but he's bloody good company as well.
Cheers, Keith.
Andy, lovely to see you. Oh, there we are. Is Andy the window cleaner, and a lovely, lovely man, and is cheery. And I always tease him because I see him chatting to his clients. Aren't you doing any work today? He's a very, very hard worker, and somebody that we must not lose from the high school. All right, we are expecting Suzanne Mouchot. She's let us know that she'll be ready in a few minutes. So I've made sure that she's got the link that she needs to access our program. It is now 10:14. It's time to twist the tail.
Well done, the energy companies. They're full of bright ideas to help their customers. Now they've made power so expensive that for an average house such as this, you can't afford to heat it. So you don't need appliances such as this. But that means you also don't need a fridge, because you can keep your groceries cool and fresh without it. The house is cold enough. Well done, chaps.
Well, just a reminder that Mirador country really tries to look after the entire county from Hastings and Rye right across to the border with Brighton. Brighton is well looked after with many radio stations and television stations, but we like to think that we look after the rest of the county, and that includes New Haven and Seaford, Hastings, St Leonard's, Eastbourne, Uckfield, and other smaller communities that too many to mention. But we do rely upon you letting us know what's going on, so that we can reflect your community. We got 1 or 2 correspondents in New Haven. We got 1 or 2 people who are aware in Seaford, although we don't hear very much from them very, very frequently. But nonetheless, you tell us, and we will rebroadcast it. Only too happy to do so. It's no sense in us stamping our feet and ranting and raving about the lack of community and the lack of duty and the lack of involvement if in fact we're not going to do it for all of you ourselves. So that was a little thing from about New Haven, a town, incidentally, for which I feel sorry, because I think that we actually have not dealt with it very well, and we should have done better by it, and we could do better by it, but we seem to have lost the knack of doing that. Right. Oh yeah, I keep on getting a fire alarm, and I think it's a practice, but hopefully we're not on fire. And let's see what this does. And in all her glory, having walked barefoot over a desert, here she is, as usual, full of beans, Suzanne Mouchot. Good morning, Suzanne.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you? It's so good to see you.
It's good to see you too, but you've been adventuring since last you were on with us.
I have. I've been traveling a lot.
You have indeed. Vancouver and somewhere in the Mojave Desert, or were you gambling in Las Vegas?
I was in Palm Springs.
Aha. Well, now I was intrigued about you walking across the desert. Tell me more.
I did. I walked. We went on this tour of the San Andreas Fault, which was amazing. It was this like 5-hour kind of trek through the desert. That was it was actually really funny. The guy who was our tour guide was also a Jeopardy winner. So he had more information about the desert than we could ever imagine. So it was really, really interesting and fun. And I didn't see any rattlesnakes, thank goodness, because that was not something I wanted to come upon. But it was interesting to see the San Andreas Fault, because the only reason you know it's the San Andreas Fault is because there's trees growing all along the line of it. It was kind of cool.
And that's the fault that threatens San Francisco and Los Angeles with the earthquakes from time to time, is it not?
That is right. That is right. It's quite long. It's like it runs the entire length of California. So it's actually all of California. But
which is how many miles?
Oh, that's a good question. I think probably, let's see, the length. Well, it's got to be at least 600 miles. At least.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that is long. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a huge fault. Tell me, when you say you walk along it, are you looking down into a crevasse
No.
Or are you just following a path, or what are you doing?
No, it's literally, you see this line of palm trees and live oaks, and it's the ground itself doesn't seem any different. But you are in the desert, and the desert is this sort of curvaceous, really, it's not even sandy. It's more, it almost looks like an entire desert made of concrete. So it's crumbly, but it's not soft or sandy, you know, at least this desert. So.
Well, I thought of you on Saturday night because they had the movie Lawrence of Arabia on.
Yeah, exactly. I know a lot of movies were filmed there. He said that Indiana Jones was filmed there, and Star Trek and one of the Star Wars was also filmed there. So
now you mentioned rattlesnakes, because I always, for some reason, when you go to Vancouver, I always think of you going up into the interior, the Okanagan Valley, where there is, I think, Simon Fraser University and University of British Columbia have satellite universities. And I always think of you going there for some reason. The time I spent there was when I was at university, and I went to play golf with my friend who lived there, and I lost my ball in the scrub. And I went hacking for it, and he said, "Oh, do be careful. You might disturb the rattlesnakes." And I was standing in the middle of rattlesnake country, beating the bush with my golf club.
He's the pioneer.
Now, how is work at the university going?
Oh, you know, it's happening. It's happening. Closing in on Christmas, so everything is winding down. So that's good. Yeah, there's still a lot of work happening there. I'm doing a lot of fun things. I'm also helping develop a summer program for students in Italy, so that's been exciting. And
Yes.
and then I'm also working on helping a company in Portugal develop their company in the United States. So I'm doing a lot of interesting things outside of that. So it's amazing, and the city looks beautiful at Christmas time. New York City at Christmas time is the best.
Oh, I can imagine. I can imagine. In fact, I have been ranting this morning because Lewis, you would think that the Grinch had been here. We do virtually nothing. And it's very disappointing. And of course, what we've done this year is we've decided to have a carol, a choir of lady singers, carol singers, in our studio, the White Hart Hotel, and to offer a few drinks to some key people in the community. And we would televise this and perhaps give the high street a boost, a bit of colour. And would you believe that it is individuals who have that sense that they want to see something done with the town who have said yes, and all the officials who should be boosting it are all busy scoffing at their own parties at the taxpayers' expense. So I am furious, and I've been rabbiting on about lack of duty that modern generations have. Now, how about in the States? The modern generations still have that sense of duty. You know, Kennedy asked not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. What's the feeling over there?
I think that it's definitely different than it used to be, but there's still definitely a feeling of duty. I don't know, when it comes to politics, though. So you're talking about your politicians.
Politicians, but also the banks don't help.
Oh, okay.
And the quangos like the NHS don't help because they have now they close lots of things on the basis that it's much more efficient, for instance, not to have branches in the small towns, but to have these ATM machines. But what they've taken away is areas where the community used to meet and have a chat. And I'm not sure that that's not counterproductive to what society needs to do, and as opposed to profit. And one of our major retail banks, high street banks, made £8 billion profit last year. So that seems to me to be counterproductive to everything the society says that it's trying to do.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I would say that in New York at least, I mean, the entire town is trying to pick itself back up again. I mean, you're working towards trying to reopen a city still. That's something that I noticed in Venice when I was walking around Venice, a month ago. There wasn't a single storefront that wasn't open. I mean, like everything was open, like every corner, every place they could even fit retail, they had open. But New York hasn't completely reopened completely. I was in this beautiful park in the city called Madison Square Park, and I was walking through, and it's all decorated for Christmas and just looks so beautiful. And then when I walked up Park Avenue, which is near my house, I saw that a lot of restaurants had started kind of reopening, not necessarily with the same name, but all of the locations are kind of popping open, and people are really, the tourists are here. Thank goodness for tourists. Thank you for coming. Keep coming. So there is definitely that sort of energy, and then that sense of duty to keep the city back going again. But there's definitely a crisis of people kind of not really knowing what it is that they're trying to get after. And so maybe with this holiday season, Keith, we're going to start seeing all of that kind of energy popping back with your encouragement. Maybe those companies will start saying, you're right, Keith, we have to do this for our people.
Yes, we do. I mean, first of all, if I've got a criticism of our politicians, is particularly the local ones, is they should be showing leadership. If my information is right, coming out of the local town hall, is that they have 2 Christmas parties for the councillors, for which we're paying, and they're quite exclusive. None of us are invited, only the councillors themselves. Now, that's hardly leadership in terms of trying to get the economy going back at Christmas. Perhaps I'm being totally unfair to them, but the fact of the matter is I've now made the accusation, and they can come back on here and counter it and say, no, Keith, it's not true.
Well, I mean, at the very least, it shouldn't be in place of, a major community event, right? Or reinvent something where everyone is volunteering in the town and, I don't know, making presents for children who don't have a Christmas this year,
Yes.
something that, reminds us all about why we're one country and one world, I actually watched, have you seen the movie Interstellar? Do you know that movie?
No.
With Matthew McConaughey. Oh, I recommend it. It's such a great movie. It's like a 3-hour sci-fi movie. But it's so good. But it reminds you of kind of our interdependence amongst each other, and how, you have to be inspired by, you say, leadership, but it's not just leadership. It's people like all of us, who kind of give that little poke, like, come on, everybody, we're all in this together, and start realizing that,
Just switching a little bit, is the news this morning that actually there are protests and calls for the resignation of Xi in China. It comes as a bit of a surprise to everybody, I think. But how is the reaction to that in the United States?
Yeah, I would say the United States, when it comes to China, you don't really hear many good things about China in the United States. But what I will say is that the United States, I don't know what it's like in Britain, but I mean, there is definitely COVID fatigue in the United States. And so I think there's that sense of, at some point we're going to have to start taking more responsibility for ourselves, make sure that we're all vaccinated, and start living our lives, And I mean, when you read in China that people aren't allowed to go out of their homes again, and they're all being banished, back to, encampments and things like this, you're like, oh, I mean, how is that even possible? They're all human beings too. I actually, when I was in Palm Springs, I did a talk about trying to encourage more women in roles at the universities and things like this. And one thing I said is that, all of our cleaners and all of our union workers. We all want the same thing. We all want to advance. We all want to have beautiful lives. We all want our kids to go to college and then they advance and have social mobility. It's the same thing is true in China. It's not like they're, any different from any of us. They all aspire for wonderful things and for their own selves and their own families. So I think it was only a matter of time, and let's see what happens, right? I mean,
Yes.
they have a pretty good hold of their country, so we'll see.
One of the interesting things about China's economic policy is, I remember when I was in Hong Kong, which has got to be before 1997, and I was talking to a Chinese journalist, and of course, in my days in Reuters in the 1990s, the economic policy was for everybody to have a bicycle. And then they switched it to everybody should aspire to have a car. And I said to this Chinese chap who said he'd got a motorbike, I said, what if the government now says, oh, go back to aspire to having a bike? He said, the people would not permit it. And I found that a bit surprising at the time, because we always get the idea that in an authoritarian regime, people don't have a voice. But it would seem that in this last 24 hours or so, they have shown that they've really got a voice.
Well, more power to them. Let's hope that they keep on trying. Now, next step, democracy, right?
Well, yes, with all its faults.
That's like one of the best things that Obama ever said. It's like democracy is messy, and thank goodness,
Yes. Well, Churchill's quote was, democracy is far from perfect, but it's the best that we've got.
That's right. That's right. I actually was listening. Do you know U2, Bono, the lead singer of U2? He was introducing Bruce Springsteen at a concert, and he said, United States is more than a country. It's actually an idea. And it's true. It's like we keep on muddling through. Yes. We get some things right and some things wrong, but at least we keep on thinking that there's a future ahead, right?
Well, that's an interesting quote, because of course I'm at home this morning because I took a bit of a fall last week, and I have to pop down to the hospital this afternoon. So I didn't go into our usual studio, but our usual studio, of course, is the White Hart Hotel, where Tom Paine actually started his concepts of the rights of man, and from which he set sail to the United States, and actually, according to Bill Bryson, introduced the term the United States on his way to persuading the colonists of the time to get rid of Great Britain and break away. So if you like, the concept of the United States as an idea started in Mirador Studios.
There you go. Thank goodness. I know. I wish I was sitting there with you having a pint.
Oh, well, you will be one day.
That would be awesome.
And I may say that Melissa sent me an email on the weekend, and she will be at our Christmas Carol party. So certainly will be treated as a VIP here. She's been to Lewis before. They like her. She likes them. So that's one bonus that we've got. I wish you could be here too.
Oh, I would love it. You have got to tell me what the date is. Maybe I can make it.
Well, there you are. It's a date, December the 22nd. A bit close to Christmas, but nonetheless.
All right.
Find an excuse to come to the UK to develop some of your architectural ideas.
I think I've got to figure that out. I think it's
time. One interesting thing is last week I spent 2 days. It was fairly dull stuff, I suppose, because we were talking about the ethics and the responsibilities of corporate structures, corporate governance. But my delegate, as it were, to my course was from Saudi Arabia. And I was very, very impressed with all that we say about Saudi, about his forward thinking, his knowledge, and some of the things that he'd instituted. So sometimes with delegates, as you well know, with students, is you have to start from scratch. But with him, he was very intelligent, had in many ways what we did was we reminded each other of the responsibilities of corporate governance. So it was good fun. But talking about democracy, here was a young man with lots of good ideas. He had two divisions of the business ministry under him. One was mergers and acquisitions, which of course would have a lot to do with the United States, and the other, I think, was to make sure that compliance, that companies complied with Saudi law and then international law. And he was a breath of fresh air, to be quite honest with you. I think that some of our own people could have done with listening to some of the things he had to say. But there you are. I went on the teaching route myself last week.
Nice. Yeah, no, it's so great to learn about other cultures. And it's the same thing we were saying about China. It's, you start getting a kind of an understanding that we all have a lot in common, even though our countries may not let us all express that, with the same kind of ease that we should be allowed to. I'm going to, in March, I'm going to a conference, a Forbes conference on women in Abu Dhabi. And it's actually about women's rights and about the value of women. But this, it's in UAE and Abu Dhabi. And so you say to yourself, this is not necessarily something that a place where women are allowed to celebrate themselves, and so, but that doesn't mean that you don't do it there. It
Yes.
means that you bring these ideas, and even if it's gently at first, you start talking about what it's like to be able to, have everything that you want, both a family and a career, and be able to express yourselves creatively or otherwise, So I'm glad that you had that student, because I think that it brings another side to these, as you use the word regimes, where, yes, they're sort of sanctioning life, but it doesn't mean that there aren't little sprouts of optimism popping up everywhere, right?
Absolutely. And the interesting thing, I think, is that although most of them remain kingdoms, they are trying hard to follow what we have in the United Kingdom, and that is a constitutional monarchy. In other words, the people have more of a say, and the monarch is the steadying figure, if you like, is the chairman or the president of the country with limited constitutional powers. So I think things are happening. We just get a bit impatient about how fast they should happen, particularly at an international level when politicians get together.
No, it's true. I would even, you could really go anywhere in the world and notice that there's things that are grumbling, that there's like an unrest. And in some cases, we're kind of worried about the direction that it's taking. But I don't know. I feel like, obviously we're getting ready for our presidential campaign, which isn't for another 2 years. But for some reason, we start these things quite early here, and they're already, one of our characters has decided to run for president, and but it's been interesting to watch his current announcement. It just doesn't have that same fervor, that it had at one time. And so, the hope is that kind of responsibility kind of returns to public service again,
Yes, I'm going to ask you about your personal feelings, and then a reflection of what American society thinks about Donald Trump's announcement that he is going to tilt for president.
Well, I'll just put it this way. I was born and raised in Manhattan, right? Just like Trump. And I wouldn't say that if I were to choose a New Yorker whom I'd wanted to become president of the United States, that it would ever have been Donald Trump. I mean, like, I would have picked people I went to grammar school with before I would pick that individual. So let's leave it at that. but the rest of the country, it's true. I don't see that same kind of energy or that same kind of movement. And I think that there is an awareness that even though we may not all agree, we do think that there is some element of public service to being in government, and it's not something that he ever took to heart. But there's still, there's still 20% of the United States population that is really, really enthralled with him. So,
how are the Democrats handling this? What is their reaction?
Well, I think, we had our midterm elections, and there was this feeling that there was going to be this huge red wave, and there just wasn't. And I think that the Democrats are thinking, oh, wait a minute, like, as I said, like maybe there is a sense that there is a way of making sure that that Democrats, and also just any of those who have that public service component, really can be successful in the 2024 election. So I think right now the thought is, who is the best person to take on the Republican candidate? And I don't actually know if it's going to end up being Trump. It could be DeSantis from Florida. It could be, there's actually a few people who are kind of coming up in the Republican Party. But thankfully in the Democratic Party, there's some really fantastic people. So if Biden chooses not to run again, it's always hard. It's always harder as when you're not an incumbent, right? Incumbents automatically get an incredible portion of the vote, which is kind of a funny thing about human nature, isn't it? It's like, you're like, well, I know him, and I've seen what he's done or heard what she's done. But I think the Democrats are booing themselves up. Pelosi leaving, her post. Obviously, she wouldn't have been the majority leader. She wouldn't have been the speaker by like 6 votes or something. Like, they thought they were going to take over with 30 votes, and it was like 6. They just eked it out, really. So, and she's an incredible lawmaker. I'm sure that you've read up about her and know a lot about her. She's incredible. What she was able to do is, it's mind-boggling what she was able to accomplish. She's probably one of the best legislators the United States have ever seen.
Yes. I'm actually on her mailing list.
Oh, you are?
Yes.
All right.
I don't know how I got there, but I haven't taken myself off.
Well, I saw an interview with her, and I've always been impressed with these political families, where what, how is it that they learn how to really be political? Like, it's not a natural thing at all, and you hear it with the Kennedy's family, any Kennedy has been trained, to be a politician, and what that vote means. Like, do you have the votes? That's always the question. Do you have the votes for candidacy? Do you have the votes for your ideas? Do you have the votes for your bills? And she was the same way. She's kind of like the most master mathematician of votes that maybe ever existed. But we'll see. I don't have any worries. I believe in the human nature and the human race, and so I think we're going to prevail, Keith.
Well, actually, the human spirit is something that indefinable. But you're quite right. It seems to see us through. But in between time, there can be some rocky moments.
That's right. There can be rocky moments. And thank goodness, because that's when you see the cracks, and that's where you see the opportunity, right? Yes.
Now let's get on to the happier things. Christmas. You say New York is ablaze. But there are things that happen, aren't there? For instance, doesn't the White House have a party is for charity and that sort of thing leading up to Christmas?
Yeah, the White House has a party, but in New York, what's so nice is all of the different Christmas markets come out. What is it? Bryant Park has this gorgeous Christmas kind of market, and Grand Central hasn't had their holiday market, in years. This is the first one since the pandemic. So it was so nice to see these beautiful little shops, all, with all their handmade wares, that they're selling for Christmas. And then it's funny, a friend of mine who lives in Estonia, he's been emailing me all of the different Christmas markets in Estonia with all these beautiful little things. So anyway, in the United States, we have tons of parties up to, and then the White House has an amazing Christmas display that's sort of legendary. And And it's actually the First Lady's responsibility to make
Right.
sure that it's appropriately appointed. So it's a pretty spectacular scene.
You mentioned Estonia. Strangely enough, that is the one Baltic country that I haven't been to. Lithuania, I've spent a lot of time in. Tell me the second one. Might slip my mind. It's
Oh,
silly.
that you, I don't know. Estonia, Lithuania, what's the other one?
Exactly. It's anyway, I've been there.
You've been there.
But Estonia,
Obviously very, very memorable.
yeah. Well, strangely enough, the time that I was there was their Independence Day, and I stumbled upon the celebrations in the middle of the town, and the president was a Canadian. She had obviously got national roots, but they had invited her to become and I think she was the first president, because it was very soon after they started working towards statehood, and it is just silly that I can't remember the name. It's age. With you, it can't be age. You're very young.
Yes,
but with me,
it's not age with
age. Just so silly. Begins with an L, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, Latvia?
Let's
see.
Oh well, never mind. It's one of the Baltic.
Yeah, Latvia.
Latvia. That's it. That's
all right.
Exactly it.
Yay!
Latvia. Yes, got it in 3. But the thing that, and I'm sure that, well, I was there pre-Christmas, and they set up a skating rink in the middle of the square. But in Lithuania, the square of the city is they set up an ice rink, and they have lots of skating, much to do the way they do in Times Square and in London, and it made it seem very, very spirited. But the old town in their capital city is all walled, and they boast that it's the biggest capital city, biggest old town in any city in the old Baltic states and Eastern Europe. And it's quite magnificent. It is quite magnificent, and you can actually go there and not move out of the city. You can stay there for forever and not miss out on anything. So Christmas there is very special too.
Oh, you see, that's wonderful to know. Yeah, my friend, I mean, he thought it was very important that I knew about every holiday from now until Christmas. I guess there's lots of saints' days that are coming up, and they're all celebrated in Estonia. And then he's like, it's very strange because we're not even a Catholic country. I have no idea why we do this. But he had the St. Andrews, St. Nick. Obviously, everybody celebrates St. Nick on December 6th. But anyway, it was a nice little reminder again that there's some great traditions all around the world. Another thing that brings us all together, right?
Absolutely. I mean, much is said, and religion nowadays takes a lot of kicking. But is in the long run, it's great that there is a spiritual feel amongst people, no matter what religion or what beliefs they have spiritually. And I think I told you that I on Memorial Sunday, November the it's actually, I think, November the 13th. Because November the 11th was a Friday, I get to actually read out the names of the fallen, and that wonderful little bit of verse, they shall not grow old. Actually, it's yes, that's right, they shall grow not old. A wonderful emotive piece, and it's one of the big highlights of my year when I get to do that. Not a great congregation, only 50 people or so, but nonetheless, I just feel that I'm taking part, and that my soul is with those people who did give their lives.
It's so true. My dad was in the Korean War, and growing up, my father never really talked about it really at all, but of course we knew he was a veteran, and he told a lot of stories to my son actually about being in the Korean War and being shoved, boated off out of San Francisco to Korea, and what it was like to take that boat when he was like 17 years old, because he started serving in the Army at 17. And
Yes.
And then, fast forward quite a bit to about 3 years ago when we were trying to get him the vaccine for COVID, because he's 90 now. So this was 87, 88 or something. And so I called up the Veterans Administration asking them if they had vaccines, and they said, yes, he can have an appointment tomorrow, So we went to the VA hospital where he had never been, and because he's been an architect all of his life, that's kind of, he hasn't really has never really talked about being a veteran. Then I find out that my dad has 2 Bronze Stars, at the hospital. Yeah. And that, that just the awareness of his being a veteran. And literally, as you're walking through the hospital, everyone says, thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. Like, it's literally they'd say that before they say hello,
Yeah.
And I think it's quite wonderful. There's this union that, at that time it was all men. So, dad's with these people who are kind of his contemporaries and served in the Korean War too. He doesn't know them at all, but there's this common bond about, surviving something like that. And, let's just hope the world doesn't need to have war. But of course we're in one right now. But eventually women will rule every country and we will never have war again. You know that's true.
Right? Well, I have to say I was lucky. I did not have a wife, God bless her, who ever beat me over the head when I got home. But she could be firm. She could be firm. Suzanne, always a delight for you to join us. It is now, actually, believe it or not, 1 minute past 11. And we've been chatting for about 45 minutes, I think. And as usual, you've given us a very colorful background to what's happening in the United States, but also your own colorful activities, which take you to so many parts of the world. So I hope that you'll join us next Monday and bring some more of your wonderful stories. When you tell a story, everybody hangs on every word. When I tell a story, they say I'm just telling tall tales.
Well, you have to have both, right? You have to have
a little mix. A
little mix.
We'll talk to you next week. Lovely to have a very good week.
Great to see you, Keith. Thank you. Okay, take care. Bye-bye. Bye.
Well, there we are. We've come to the end of the morning. Just a reminder of the fact that we have turmoil again in the world. We have turmoil again in Westminster. We have turmoil again locally. And I hope that some of what we say on this program will get through, and that people will start to think again about duty, about what they can do, not only for their country, but for their community, for our town of Lewis, for our district of Lewis, for our county of East Sussex, and eventually our country, Great Britain. And still, happily, despite the efforts of separatists, the United Kingdom. Till tomorrow, we hopefully will be back with you tomorrow morning, and hopefully again that my visit to the hospital will be successful this afternoon, and that I will start to see you out of the White Hart Hotel and back with my beloved 3 ladies Jane, Shannon, and Sally. And yeah, we'll let Cliff in on it as well. Cliff Ayres, the owner of the hotel. Till then, toodle pip.